So there's one thing left, and this is the big one. So I have been back and forth on consoles for a long time. I started out way when I was little. I started with the Sega Genesis. Super cool console. But then I got a Super Nintendo and realized, oh shit, this console's amazing. So many good games. That's literally, in my opinion, the best console. Ah, wait, it's PS2 or so. Ooh, now that I think about it, it's tough. But either way, that's still definitely the best, like, pre 3D console without question. I don't even think there's any questioning that. And then I moved up to an N64. That lasted, not too long. Moved to PS2. I think that might actually be my personal favorite. It may not be the best. I think that's the problem. Like, I'm the guy that's like, I can have a favorite and a best as two separate things. Like, for example, I think Final Fantasy X is my personal favorite Final Fantasy, period. No question. But Final Fantasy VI is easily the best Final Fantasy they ever made. So there is kind of that thing. So maybe PS2 is my personal favorite because, like, all my favorite games that I grew, like Final Fantasy X, Persona 4 or 3 and 4. I'm just looking at my shelf here, actually. Dragon Quest, Mana Khemia, Shadow Hearts, like Star Ocean, Suikoden, like so many of those JRPGs, because I'm a big JRPG guy. That was my console. But obviously, Super Nintendo has all the Mario games, Zelda, Metroid, like all that. So there's that too. But I went from PS2 then to 360, and then I went from 360 to PS4. And the reason I went from PS2 to 360 was because my brother owned a 360, played a bunch of games on that already. So it just made sense to get a 360 and just not lose everything. But when the next generation came in, Xbox royally screwed us all over by saying, hey, we're not going to have DRM, so you have to be always online, no used copies, and it's a glorified TV box. So I went, all right, PlayStation, let's see what you got again. And then PlayStation's like, we got all the Japanese shit that you love, you freaking trash weave. I'm like, that's a good point, Sony. So I went with PS4. And it was up to Sony now to keep me away from staying with them for PS5. And at this point, that's exactly where I'm going to stay. However, that does not mean that I'm okay with what's happening currently. Because, by the way, it's September 7th as I do this stream. So I don't know what you guys are seeing on the VOD. I don't know when this is going to get clipped and get posted onto YouTube. But it's been a long time since they first announced, or not announced the console, but showed off what it actually looked like on June the 11th. I believe that was the date of that stream. So we've been almost 3 full months since, and we've heard no new pieces of information. And here we are on September 7th, and we now know that they're coming in mid-November at the latest, probably. Like, it'd be pretty stupid for the holiday season to have it in December. Like, it's coming in November. So at this point, we're probably under, well, we're definitely under 90 days. We're probably under 70. We're probably at maybe at most 60. 60, 70 days probably. Which makes it really interesting that, throughout history, this is a great article from Ars Technica, by the way, just showing like the trend so far in all of these. Now, a lot of consoles have definitely been trending downward. However, you think by this, okay, well, that's, obviously, maybe they're taking less and less time between releases. Here's the thing. This is numerically all the big ones. Notice how each generation, this is not doing what I wanted to. Come on. Notice how each generation. So that was pretty big. Now, obviously, Microsoft is a little bit different with theirs. The PS3, still very much 6 months out. Nintendo does their own thing, apparently, now. And then again, this generation, still another like 6 months. Because it's basically E3, right? E3 is when we get all the information. The only times in basically like all these generations, because it doesn't show PS1, so I'm not sure what they were at. But Sony has only ever been under 100 days with the PS4 Pro, which was just a better PS4. And here we are now with the PS5 and the Series X. Literally more than half the time that normally it takes is already passing. Like, literally, they never go this close to release date. And now, obviously, there could be a lot of reasons as the holdup. I mean, obviously there's a pandemic going on, right? Like, we all understand this. We all know that, this is a very difficult business decision to make when a pandemic's going on. But at this point, like, if you're not going to release it in November, then you should have said something by now. Because your fans are hyping up like a son of a bitch. Like, Cyberpunk's been delayed way in advance, so we knew, right? I have time booked off this month because that's when it was supposed to come out. And I still have that time booked off. I also have November booked off now. Hopefully I get to use that. But if they really were going to change the date, they should have done it by now. So we have to assume that this is coming out in November because it makes the most sense. Like, that's the time you want to come out. Throughout history, they're either really late October or November. Literally, the only console that hasn't been out in November out of these major companies has been the Switch. We're not talking handhelds. We're just talking home consoles. The last time a console came out of the big three, not in November, was the PS2. If we're not counting the Switch, so for at least 2 decades, basically, right? So November is always the time. And at this point, we kind of have the feeling, because, I mean, the WHO has said that the pandemic is likely not going to have a widespread vaccine until, like, May. So we're definitely still at least 6 months away from this thing being gone, if it's going to have a vaccine. Hopefully it does. So this console is coming out in November. It's September. This doesn't happen. And I know because E3 has not happened this year, that's probably a big part of why. But there's also more to it. And we got to think there's more to it. I mean, obviously it's a pissing contest between Microsoft and Sony. We know that. But I think the biggest part of it has to do with how much this thing's going to cost. I really, really hope that this console, at the very least, I'm talking the PS5, I really hope that the digital version is at the most $499 US, which is about $650 Canadian for me. Any more than that, and I don't know how I can justify that cost, especially now when Nvidia's come out with these amazing new graphics cards that cost about as much. I'm already at the point, and I've said this on the podcast, obviously those watching the VOD or watching the stream are not going to know this. I've boycotted Sony. Now, a boycott, by that I mean, like, I'm refusing to buy their console till a certain date. So I gave them until the end of August to announce the date and the price. And because they haven't, I said, okay, now I'm not going to buy this game till the first day of summer, which I believe is the 20th of June. So at the very least, I'm not buying this console for, 9 months? Gives me time to save up anyway. Like I said, I'm paycheck to paycheck. It's probably going to help. It's going to help a little bit than putting it on a credit card, Now it's at the point that if they don't announce this month, I may just not buy it till 2022, right? Because we all know, like, gamers know that you can go at least a full year without a console. Because most of the major games are going to come out for the same consoles that you're already on. They're going to stick for previous gen because not everybody's getting that new console right away. So, in terms of the date, I'm already really upset about it. And the price is also worrying me, because if that console at bare minimum is $599 for the digital version, holy shit. Because that's, I think, almost $800 now. So let's see, USD to Canadian. Because, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, $499 was $650. Yeah, $653. If we go up to $599, it's almost $800. $800. I do not have that kind of disposable. That's me saving up for quite some time. Especially when I think I know the 3070 is the same price, it's $499, and the 3080 is $699, which is $900. So basically, if I have to pay $800, let's say, for a PS5, why wouldn't I just see if I can get a 3080 in my PC and literally not have to think about upgrading my computer for fucking ever? Right? Like, that's an option I could have. I could just say, you know what, I'll just keep playing the PS4 for 3 years, and if there are specific exclusive games that I can't play on PS5 for a while, so be it. I'm really not going to be happy if I miss out on Horizon 2 or Spider-Man Miles Morales, because I believe both of them are exclusives. But if I have to wait, I'll wait. It's not that hard. I know a lot of people have trouble waiting for things, especially now, and I get that. But at the same time, waiting is really not that hard, especially in these ages of things like PS Plus giving you free games, or Xbox Game Pass, or all these free-to-play games that you can play on Steam, or PlayStation or Xbox, or Epic's free games that you get all the time, or all these crazy deals that happen. There's so many ways that you can play stuff and not need to buy a game at launch. It's really rare that I buy any games at launch, and that doesn't even have to do with me being paycheck to paycheck. That's just me doing that because I don't think that I should be giving companies my undivided attention right away for games. They should have to prove that they deserve that attention from me. That's why Cyberpunk is getting my money right away. Also, Amazon put that thing off 25% off, so I actually paid only 55 bucks Canadian for it rather than the usual 70. So that helped my decision making. But really, like, Mass Effect Andromeda basically told me that I should really never trust anything that I see and wait for the reviews. Spider-Man, I really thought was actually not going to be that great. And of course, I didn't play it until 6 months later after I'd heard from everybody how good that game was. And I played it, and sure as shit, it was one of the best games I played. Same with Horizon. Waited to see what reviews were for that because I had a bad feeling that game was going to be a little bit weird. Because the last time that a game looked so cool conceptually and was terrible was Watch Dogs. That game I pre-ordered, and I paid the price for that one. No Man's Sky. Really thought that looked cool. Paid the price for pre-ordering that one. So that's what happens. So now, I really try to avoid spending my money right away. Unless it's a proven commodity. And sometimes even then, I still am a little bit hesitant now. And when it comes to a console, it's going to be no different. I mean, sure, I'd really love to have a console that works now with a 4K TV that is sitting over in the distance that you guys don't see, that I spent specifically for this. And now it's just running my gaming PC right now. I really want to play that. Really do. Would love to. But we're not there yet. And we're not going to be there for a while. So unfortunately, at least till June the 20th, I'm not going to be going that route. And if they continue to do this, because they're having a pissing match with Microsoft, and because potentially this price may be too scary to give to people during a pandemic, then it is what it is. But if it really is something that you guys are so worried about, because here's the thing, by the way. If you announce the price and the other company undercuts you, you can just match. Right? It's happened before where I've seen prices go, like, you can probably go through a distributor, like, you can have a deal where it's like, hey, like, we'll reimburse you on this. Like, if you can prove that you pre-ordered a console and paid the full price for it, hey, we'll give you, like, let's say the console comes out at $699, and then they say, oh, actually, it's going to be $599 because Microsoft undercut us. Sony could just say, hey, if you can prove that you bought this thing for that price, we'll give you a one-time $100 code. And I'm not sure how they would go about it. Maybe people would game it, but, you know, it is what it is. If you really want to not get undercut, then that's what you got to do. It really just comes down to, I don't care if it's a pissing contest. I don't care if you guys are scared about the price. We're weeks away from having an unprecedented time between announcement of date and price and the actual launch. Because the Switch had the fastest turnaround with their 50-day difference between their release. And I think, yeah, they'd have to announce it at the end of September for it to match that. So really, we're probably about 3 weeks away from an unprecedented number of days. And I mean, Nintendo can get away with it because they weren't going to ship you that many consoles anyway. So who cares how much time they gave you? They weren't going to stock the place anyway. This is a much more major release. I mean, do you think Sony doesn't want to have the same amount of sales that they did with the PS4? Because what are the stats right now? Because I think they're like second or third all time now. Not counting handhelds. Actually, they're second all time if you don't count handhelds. So if we don't count the two handhelds, they were the DS and the Game Boy, but they're basically, they own like one and two. They've even surpassed the Wii, which, by the way, I can't believe that the Wii didn't actually outsell the PS2. I know the PS2 sold well because it was a DVD player, but the Wii legitimately sold to like families. No console is ever going to pull off what the Wii did again. And the fact that the PS4 is past that, and the original PlayStation passed that, that's actually crazy. I would have thought that we would have passed the original PlayStation. That's actually really shocking to me. But PS4 is second all time. I don't know if it'll eclipse PS2. It might actually, if it stays around long enough, but it's still got a bit of a road. It's got 45 million units still to sell. That's still pretty incredible. That's still really incredible, actually. That they've sold 110 million copies in 7 years. Do you think that Sony doesn't want to do that again with PS5? And I guess the reason that they figure that is because if they announce the price early and it ends up being too much, people will come down on it. Here's the thing though, Sony. After Microsoft delayed Xbox Infinite, or not Xbox Infinite, Halo Infinite, I think you guys know that you've won. I can't remember what study I saw, but I think I saw something that said like 78% of all gamers, like that have been polled, are going to be buying a PS5. I wonder if I can find... Let's see. The problem is I'm trying to find like dates that would be recent. Yeah, this isn't going to be easy to find. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was basically roughly like 75 to 85%, something around that were polled and said they were choosing PS5 over Xbox Series X. And this was before Halo Infinite got delayed. So now there's really nothing on the Xbox that really is going to get your attention in terms of launch titles. So if you're just buying console for console, I think a lot of people are going to go with PS5 anyway. And it just becomes even easier now that the game lineup is pretty barren on the Xbox Series X. Whereas the PS5, to our knowledge, is going to have at least Miles Morales, which is a pretty big game, because we haven't heard anything about it, at least in terms of it being behind. We haven't heard any rumors of that stuff, so it'd be fair to believe that Sony, you're going to win this race pretty quickly in the beginning. So why worry about the price? You can always charge it later. You can always, like, after 12 months say, okay, we're going to charge it down to $100. We're going to $100 less. And we all figure we're going to get a pro version somewhere down the road too. So, or a slim version or something of that nature, right? So I don't see why we're waiting anymore. And who knows, maybe they'll end up announcing something tomorrow without anybody knowing. Who knows? There's always so many chances of shit happening, but I really don't believe it at this point. I keep making the joke that we're going to hear them announce the date of the PS5 when it's already been on store shelves. People are already going to own the console, and they'll come out and say, hey, by the way, you can get this console 2 weeks ago. It's just because I'm like, they're hiding so much. And it really does make me worry that the console's either going to cost a lot or that they're just having the most childish like fighting match right now, which is just silly. I think they need to stop that. Because as a consumer, it's a little frustrating when you're trying to want to get hyped about something and you can't. And not to mention as a podcaster, as a streamer now, I mean, hopefully in the long run a streamer, it's also frustrating because you want to talk about this stuff. And I can't talk about it. We've had so many times on the VCR podcast where we've literally just talked about nothing happening. Like, there's just no announcements. It's frustrating. Like, you want that stuff to keep going, and it's not. So, you know, it is what it is. But at this point, I'm not touching it till June anyway. And we'll just see if that number keeps going, because they have till the end of this month. Otherwise, it becomes at least at the earliest January 1st, 2022.